All right, well, good Hoops Tonight here at the Volume. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope all of you guys had an incredible weekend. Got a jam-packed show for you guys this morning. Off the top, I want to talk big picture. After rewatching last night's game, I want to talk big picture about some of the expectations that I think are fair to put on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as we move forward in this series. And then after that, got a bunch of clips that are going to be zooming in on OKC's half-court offense. Spoiler alert, it wasn't pretty. And it goes deeper than just some execution errors. And we're going to talk about the difference between some of the execution errors versus some of the realities of their ball handling limitation now that AJ Mitchell and J-Dub are out. And frankly, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just is struggling to get great shots for himself and for others under the circumstance. So a little bit more concerned about OKC than I was even after the watch last night. You guys will see why when we get into the film. That'll be the second half of this morning's show, just like a standard film breakdown. You guys know the joke before we get started. Subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. We have a goal to get to 150,000 subs in this postseason. And so you guys can help us a lot if you take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, like this video and sign up for post notifications. That helps us a lot. All right, let's talk some basketball. So, I've talked about this before with various teams, and one of the specific teams recently that I talked about this with was with Boston, right? And there's this idea that like teams want to be regarded as an all-time great team. And I think there's a difference between being an all-time great team in potential versus being an all-time great team in reality, right? Like when I watched the Celtics in 2024, I certainly thought that potential existed, right? When you see the ability to switch with the Al Horford looks, the ability to protect the rim with Kristaps Porzingis, these multiple different 5-out spacing looks and the driving kick basketball that they could play. And you even leave that playoff run going and Jason Tatum can play a hell of a lot better than he did, right? Like there's certainly that potential existed, but then in reality, in practice, when we got to the second round series against the Knicks last year, it's like, well, a couple of their older players are looking a little bit rickety compared to previous years. And Tatum and Brown are both struggling to a certain extent, although Tatum was playing really well at the time of his injury. And it just was like, oh, actually, well, in practice, they were unable to achieve the thing that you need to achieve that status, which is what I said after 2024. You need multiple championships in order to be regarded as all-time great in retrospect. And we're encountering the first real challenge of this OKC era talent-wise, right? Like, yes, did Indiana push them to the brink? Of course. Did Denver push them to the brink? Of course. But even when OKC wasn't playing their best basketball, if they engaged themselves to a certain extent defensively, the talent gap was just too wide for those Indiana and Denver teams to overcome, right? And so they were able to win, but when you approach the challenge of winning multiple championships, inevitably you end up running into some sort of situation where a team can confront you with the talent in position. A legitimate oh, they're super good at this and it's a problem for us. And you're seeing that with this. Do I think Oklahoma City has all-time great potential? Absolutely. Do I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has all-time great potential? Absolutely. But doing it in theory versus doing it in practice are two very different things. And I would argue this series in particular is one that OKC has to get because Victor Wembanyama is going to be dramatically better next year than he is this year. Same goes for Steph Castle. Same goes for Dylan Harper. Maybe there's a move or two on the margins for them to make. This is an ascending Spurs team where OKC is a little bit more on the plateauing side because they've been ascending over the last several years, right? And so this kind of feels like a one that the Thunder have to get. And so there is a lot of pressure on this situation. The reason why I bring this up is because when we talk about that kind of all-time great status, that means something to me. It is something that is achieved through moments, through adversity, through dominance, usually a combination of those things. And it's not any one thing, right? Like if you just have the moments, but you haven't really overcome any real adversity and you don't really have any dominance in that equation, you're not going to be viewed as all-time great, right? Like Luka has a lot of moments, but he hasn't had a dominant playoff run where he just is way better than everybody and hoists the trophy. He hasn't been able to overcome adversity and win, right? So like for Luka, like he's got the moments box checked, but he's missing some of those other things. For Shai, I'd argue like there's been the dominance. Like, okay, we've seen him be on a great team that can beat everybody, right? But what we're missing is like that overcoming some adversity piece and the moments piece, right? And like this is that opportunity. We talked about this after game 3. If you guys remember game 3 of the Knicks Cavs series, we discussed how LeBron James in 2012 in game 6, he is down 3-2. We get this legendary meme of him just looking laser focused. He drops 30 points in a half, 45 for the game, lifts them over the top, and carries them to the NBA Finals, right? And that becomes one of the many hallmark moments of LeBron's career and one of the many reasons why LeBron is now considered a candidate for the best player in the world. There's a bunch of moments like that, but that's one of the defining moments of his career. And we talked after game 3 against the Knicks Cavs series about how there was a version of this story in this series where AJ Mitchell being out could cause some adversity for the Thunder. And all of a sudden it could be like, oh man, we need Shai to carry us out of this particular series long enough so that AJ Mitchell and J-Dub can return and maybe we have a chance to overcome these injuries and win the title. And after watching the film, and again, you guys are going to see when we dig into these clips, after watching the film, I had talked about it being like a game 6 thing. Like, oh, what if the Spurs jump up 3-2? I'm looking at it now like Shai's got to get game 5. Because if he loses game 5, I don't know that they're going to be able to go down in San Antonio and get a win against this defense, playing as hard as they do, and how bad the shot quality is overall. The Thunder last night had 99 half-court possessions according to Synergy. And the Thunder scored on 33 of them. 2/3 of their half-court possessions ended without any points. And you're going to see why. The challenge is here. Because of AJ Mitchell and J-Dub being out, the depth of ball handling is non-existent. There's too much being put on the plates of people like Jared McCain and Chet Holmgren. And that is going to put a heavy emphasis on Shai. One thing you'll also notice on the film, Shai was bad last night. He wasn't winning his one-on-ones. He wasn't winning his 2-on-2s and ball screens. He was missing open kickout reads. He was turning the basketball over. He looked unexplosive at times and physically overwhelmed, as you guys will see. Part of the reason why last night that they lost was because Shai was bad. We've been consistent about this in this postseason run. Nikola Jokic has been viewed as, by many, including myself, as the best offensive player of all time. And certainly in that conversation by the masses. And he got fair criticism for being that level of, player in terms of the way he's discussed and failing to generate good shots versus that Minnesota defense. Similarly, Shai, by many people, has since that point been vaulted above Jokic and considered, by myself as well, and considered as the best offensive player in the game. I'd argue he might still be. But in that universe, there's an expectation that you should be able to generate quality shots versus an elite defense, even a all-time great defense, if that's what you consider this Victor Wembanyama-led unit to be. And not scoring on 2/3 of your half-court possessions is an indictment on Shai and his job to create quality shots for his team. So, is it over? Of course not. There are some realities here with Shai where I'm starting to get a little concerned about this inability to make shots at the same clip as the regular season. We are now on 3 consecutive seasons where Shai has had a precipitous drop-off in his efficiency compared to the regular season. 2024, his true shooting percentage dropped by 5 percentage points between the regular season and the playoffs. 2025, his true shooting percentage dropped by 6% from the regular season to the playoffs. 2026, so far in this playoff run, he's shooting 7% worse in true shooting percentage compared to what he shot in the regular season. He's 11 for 30 on mid-range jump shots. in the conference finals. 4 for 15 from three. Now, I did talk about in our series preview that I didn't think he would shoot 57%. The shot quality is too difficult. With Wemby at the rim, and you guys are going to see more examples in the clips today, there's just not a lot of space on these pull-up jumpers. But 11 for 30 is too much of a drop-off. He's got to be making more of these shots. And there are going to be some specific ones that you guys will see in the clips where it's like, that's the one that Shai's got to hit. And so here's the time. All of these guys that we view as all-time greats, Steph, LeBron, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, they didn't achieve that status because we foisted it on them. They achieved it through moments. They achieved it through overcoming adversity. They achieved it through stretches of dominance. This is Shai's first time where it's like, hey, you were the favorite in this series. The specific thing they need from you now, especially with the coverage change, is to beat this team one-on-one and to beat this team two-on-two in ball screens. The pressure is on Shai to do the thing that he is known for, which is being the best isolation player in the league, one of the best offensive engines in the league. The thing that will lift OKC out of this series, and you still have the advantage. It's best 2 out of 3. You're home court for 2 of them. And you still have an all-time great defense behind you that is capable of playing this Spurs game into some bad offensive nights, and they will. The Spurs are going to have at least one, maybe more, bad offensive nights the rest of this series. You don't need to go out there and shoot 57% on your mid-rangers like you did in the regular season. But you got to go out there and be a more efficient one-on-one player, a more successful shot creator against their drop coverage, and you've got to find a way to get this engine running. That's what comes with the title, being potentially the best player in the world. That's what comes with the title of being acknowledged as an all-time great player in this league. When you're in situations like this, you flip the outcome in your favor. It's what LeBron did. It's what Steph Curry did in 2022 in the NBA Finals in Game 4 when he went on the road in Boston and dropped a 40-piece to regain control of the series. This is Shai's turn. We talked about this earlier in the series. Inevitably in his career, he was going to encounter situations where there was adversity and the challenge was much greater than what he had last year. Shai himself said, I didn't play my best basketball and we won anyway. That was a lower degree of difficulty. This is a much higher degree of difficulty. This is the next challenge. For the record, I said this last night. I'm still leaning slightly towards OKC to win the series. I believe Shai will have his moments. I think the Thunder will advance. I was a little less confident after hearing about the AJ Mitchell injury. And you guys will see after watching this film why I'm even less confident than I was after watching the game last night. But the opportunity is still there. I think in Game 5, OKC's defense is going to be amazing. I think they're going to drag the Spurs down into the mud. I don't think Shai's going to need to be perfect. But I think he's going to need to find a way to score on more than just 1/3 of their half-court possessions in order to push this team over the top. And if he does, for the record, I'm saying this now so that we get in front of it. If we get to the end of this series and OKC wins, and it's because Shai had 2 good to pretty great offensive nights in defensive slugfests, Shai deserves a boatload of credit for solving this Spurs defense. Because as you guys are going to see, this is not easy. So we're there. We're at the first big, show me what you got moment of Shai's career. And I do believe that Shai is an all-time great. So I expect Shai to respond. And frankly, as a basketball fan, I'm really excited to see it. All right, let's dig into some of these clips. As all of you guys know, I play a ton of basketball. I used to play just an obnoxious amount. I used to go up to the University of Arizona Rec Center and I'd play pickup for 4 consecutive hours. Then when I turned 32, I noticed a difference in my recovery, my ability to play at the same level of intensity day in and day out. I've always wondered about what supplements could benefit me as I try to keep my basketball playing days going for as long as possible. You guys know I have no interest in giving up anytime soon. If that sounds familiar to you, check out Mars Men. It's a potent, natural testosterone supplement that optimizes your body's ability to absorb it. It gives you the same benefits of TRT, but without the synthetics, needles, or dependency. Mars Men testosterone only has real natural ingredients that support healthy T levels, stamina, and recovery. Something that can give you the benefits of increased testosterone, but without the scary long-term issues. Plus, it's made in the US, it's third-party tested, and there's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Worst case, if you don't absolutely love it, you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website to see for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners can get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. It's also available on Amazon. After you purchase, it will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at these Shai pick and rolls from earlier in the game where they were getting Hartenstein in the pocket. So again, as you can see, the difference in the defensive coverage is just how much they're pinching off of the off-ball players. So as you can see, Champagne's kind of in the gap, Fox is kind of in the gap, but they're not way up in the gap. This is more or less a 2-on-2 coverage. And as Shai works down against Wemby, he does a good job of getting Castlecott on the screen and engaging Wemby as the screen defender. That opens up Hartenstein as the open man. Hartenstein does a good job rolling into that gap and hitting the little floater over the top of Wemby. Now, what you're going to see is a difference in just how much pressure Hartenstein gets as that goes along. We get into a double drag on this possession. Shai's looking to attack Wemby and drop. He wipes out Vassell on the screen, gets downhill, bumps Wemby, but look at the defense from Wemby. Look at the contest point of this shot. This is just an extremely difficult shot diet against this caliber of defense. And that's with him getting some decent separation off of the little push-off. One of the things you guys are going to notice when we look at these clips as we start to watch, Shai is not looking overly explosive right now. And that is kind of an underrated part of this whole dynamic is the workload on him is going to stress him physically in a real way that I think makes this a more interesting challenge than meets the eye. On the offensive rebound here, look at this block from Wemby against Chet. So Wemby's out of the picture because he ran the floor. He recovers to contest Cason Wallace. Chet cuts down the lane. Look at this block. Ridiculous stuff. Here's that second Hartenstein floater. Wemby not very good defensively on this particular clip because he kind of relaxes after the pass. So watch as we get a little dig down from Champagnie, and this is the other part of like you're going to see a lot of these where like Shai's only focused on the 2-on-2. I'm going to be calling out Shai's head a lot in these clips because I want you to see how he's kind of a little tunnel vision, which is causing him to miss some reads. So you're coming off of this action in the 2-on-2. Champagnie's in the full dig. You need to be moving the basketball to Chet and then swinging it extra to Dort in the corner. You're probably going to get a pretty decent look there. But he does get through this dig down from Champagnie, and he hits the drop-off pass to Hartenstein. Now watch Wemby. Right as the pass is made, he relaxes. And then by the time he goes to contest, Hartenstein has plenty of time to kind of get into his shot. So like, we talk about this all the time. When guys are making shots, you have to find a way to play them into misses by increasing pressure. You're going to see some examples of that on the next few clips. So this is Hartenstein's third floater. It's going to come out of Chet post up. So Chet's posting up Devin Vassell in this possession. His primary matchup is Julian Champagnie, but I'd argue it's the same thing with Champagnie. He goes to double team or goes to post up, and he draws a kind of a soft double team from Wemby, which leaves Hartenstein wide open. Chet throws the easy pass, and Hartenstein knocks it down. So like, and you're going to see another example from the early second half, but I like the idea of using Chet post-ups as another vehicle with which to get the defense in rotation. I thought this was poor spacing. So we're running kind of a version of double drag that's kind of looks like Chicago because it starts with the dribble handoff instead of a traditional pick and roll, like ball handler sequence. But we pitch it to Shai. He's attacking Wemby and drop. Hartenstein rolls behind Wemby and sets a really nice back screen. So, boom. Right there, this should be a layup. But Cason Wallace, instead of wheeling to the corner as everyone's kind of wheeling up, Cason Wallace cuts to the strong side, and that puts De'Aaron Fox right in his way, which turns Cason Wallace into the read and turns into kind of like a little bit of, if you watch Cason Wallace's feet, he's a little off balance as he's turning. It's just a tougher shot. I like this kind of idea of setting that back screen on Wemby in these rolls when Wemby's playing higher. That's probably a layup for Shai if Cason just clears to this corner. And if he clears to the corner and Fox stays, then you have an easy kick out for an open three. So that was just some bad spacing from Cason Wallace. Now you're going to see Hartenstein's made 3 of these in a row, and you're going to see Wemby apply like a little bit more pressure. Hartenstein stays hot and makes this one, but this is a harder shot. You get a dig down here from Champagny. There's another version of this again where like Shai, if he just starts to like kind of make this pass, then Dort can rack the closeout baseline and maybe all these dudes just turn their heads and somebody else gets wide open. So there's a certain amount of like, maybe there needs to just be more of an emphasis on beating the dig downs. I'd also argue like it might be time for Daigneault to consider making an alteration to the starting lineup because you're in a group right now where like Chet is not the most comfortable quick release 3-point shooter. Dort's not really making anything. So you've got one guy who just feels like a pretty reliable catch and shoot guy on the floor in Cason Wallace here. Might be worth considering tweaking the starting lineup, getting Jared McCain in there early in the game. Look at the pressure from Wemby on this one, though. Pockets open. Wemby closes the gap. Gets a better contest. Hartenstein makes this one, but the increased pressure is going to start to play Hartenstein into some misses. This is the first Hartenstein miss. It's actually a peel switch from Devin Vassell. So we get the handoff to Shai. They get downhill. We're digging again. Once again, like, look, there's no even attempt from Shai to burn this dig down at all. He's just trying to drive through the gaps as much as he can. But he hits Hartenstein again. Watch Vassell. Vassell peels off, ends up getting a contest. Hartenstein rushes a little bit and finally misses. Again, 2-man game. A little bit less of a dig down this time. Wemby's on the ball again. Hartenstein's there. But Wemby this time gets a great contest and forces Hartenstein to take it from almost the foul line. And he leaves it short. A couple misses in a row now. This is another example of Shai. Kind of reminded me a little bit of last year where he started to kind of like force the issue a little bit. He's driving downhill on Castle. He's got a dig down from Dylan Harper. Wemby steps up. And he just ends up taking this like pretty bad floater over the top of Wemby that has no shot. And again, look at the weak side. Like there's a 2-on-1 here with Caruso and Dort, and there's no attempt to move the ball through the defense. And if you look at the beginning of this possession, Wemby's the guy guarding Caruso, and Wemby's just ignoring Caruso, and there's no attempt to get him out there. And like it's one of those things where Caruso didn't attempt a single 3 last night. Some of it is they're not helping off of him as aggressively, but a big part of it is like Shai's just tunnel vision. If you look at it, look at his head. He's just head down in the lane. He's just looking for his shot. This is an example of how ball denial can win you a defensive possession. Watch Harper on Shai. Really good ball denial. Same thing here. Ball denial forces Shai to cut through. Now we're going to run through McCain instead. McCain's driving on Wemby. Turns into a contested 3 on the weak side. And because there's less help from off the ball, see how Keldon's like kind of digging, but he's mostly home. So as a result, he's there on the catch. And again, as we know, if you pressure OKC from the 3-point line, their 3-point percentage drops by like 9-10 percentage points. So it's a pretty substantial drop off. Here's another example of Shai dribbling with his head down through digs. Shai literally gets to his left hand against Dylan Harper, but watch. Head down, dribbling through digs. Like he's done his job. You've engaged Vassell, and Jared McCain is the open man. But instead, he's got his head down, ends up in traffic. He gets swiped at by Vassell, and then Castle ends up coming in from behind, knocking the ball away. That kills most of the shot clock. Now there's 6 seconds on the shot clock with Jay Will all the way on the outside. That turns into contested cutting pass to Caruso and a turnover. So again, like I'm going to play it in fast motion. Just watch how Shai looks rushed and how he's got his head down. And he's just kind of playing on an island instead of seeing the openings that are there. Watch Shai's head. Just not really reading the floor very well. Here's an example of the problem where Jared McCain is now your second best ball handler. Okay, we need you to do something so that Shai doesn't have to do everything. He's turning the corner, but not. This is what you call a flattened out drive. See how he's like flattened out so that there's no real advantage on Vassell. Vassell has him pinned under the backboard. Then he tries to reverse, and he's physically overwhelmed. That is a physically overwhelmed offensive player against the third best perimeter defender on the floor for San Antonio. And he just gets completely smothered. And that's kind of where the ball handling dynamic has taken a turn for the worse. Again, if it's AJ Mitchell and J-Dub out there with Shai, there's all these like different guys who can kind of break the defense down off the bounce. Here's another example of just missing a very simple read. So we're going to run an off-ball curl action for Chet, a little pin down for Caruso, or pin down from Hartenstein. He goes to curl. Watch Vassell. Vassell ends up digging down. Chet's just playing on an island. Look at Chet's head. As Chet's curling, all he's seeing is the 2-on-2. He's not seeing the dig down that ends up leading to the poke away in the steal. There's not really good floor awareness. And credit to the Spurs and their pressure because it kind of caused OKC to kind of rush and lose their composure a little bit. But as you can see, the openings are there. They're still digging down a lot off the ball. Shai finally beats the drop here with a jump shot, but look at how tough this shot is. Great shot. Tough bucket, though. This one is the kind of battle where Shai's got to start winning more frequently. So good screen from J. Will sets up a one-on-one against Champagnie. We're hanging off the ball. We're leaving him one-on-one, basically. Like Vassell's digging in the gap a little bit. Fox is in the gap a little bit. But Shai's more or less in a one-on-one here and gets good separation. That's a shot Shai's got to hit if they're going to win this series. Here's a rep that he wins against the high drop with Cornette. As you can see, as Cornette's at the level, he turns the corner, gets all the way downhill, gets to the basket. I included this one because I saw a couple of people that were defending this as a good foul call. And I understand by the book the idea that like, oh, there was this little bit of contact and just a little bit of a landing area violation from De'Aaron Fox. I disagree simply because of the fact that like we talk about it all the time in the NBA playoffs. There's such thing as marginal contact. And the only time where I think marginal contact should be rewarded with free throws every single time without fail is like forearm contact or like wrist contact on the jump shot, because even the slightest bit of contact can make a foot or two difference in where the ball goes on a jump shot release, right? But like this to me, like technically there's the slightest little hip bump and there's like maybe the slightest bit of a landing. I don't even think there's necessarily a landing area violation there. So I just thought a lot of the people that were defending that call were making a hilarious kind of like misrepresentation of what playoff basketball is, which is there is some marginal contact that occurs on some possessions. I thought that was a bad call. Here's an example of how bad spacing can kill a possession. And I've credited the Thunder for having really good spacing for the most part, but not very good spacing sequences. A lot of jogging in their relocations, a lot of just like not meeting the urgency of the situation. So Shai is going to look to attack here against Fox. Look, as he starts to drive, though, look at where everyone's at. I've got Wiggins and Chet standing in the same dunker spot with the corners occupied. That allows Castle and Vassell to be up in these gaps without much concern for giving up an opening. You got to have your spacing set up in a way where like J. Will is up higher and Wiggins is here in the corner, so that when Shai makes this move, when Shai makes that move and engages Castle, if J. Will is up here, it's a quick swing. Maybe Wiggins is open, or maybe he doesn't get rotated to, and there's an opportunity to hit a shot. This is bad spacing. And to talk about like the jogging and moving, look at J. Will. Look, he walks up the lane line. Then he cuts towards the basketball. But when it's too late and Steph has a chance to close out. So just a lack of urgency in kind of the way they were spacing the floor. Today's show is brought to you by presenting sponsor Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. The second round of the NBA playoffs is here, where the lights are brighter, the pressure is higher, and every possession can change a series. And at Hard Rock Bet, every night is your shot to score a major bucket. With win or go home energy on the hardwood, I love building same game parlays. You might like the hot hand to drop 30, the big man to control the glass with a double-double, and the point guard to dish out 5 assists. However you draw it up, Hard Rock Bet gives you tons of ways to stack your picks into a same-game parlay built for the playoffs. If you're ever late for tip-off, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet lets you live bet all game long from the first bucket to the final buzzer. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today, and you can score $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but also an extra $150 in bonus bets. Hard Rock Bet has new promos daily, so open up the app right now to see what promo you've got today. And sure, Hard Rock Bet is Florida's only legal sportsbook, but you don't have to be in Florida to join the party. Hard Rock Bet is also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan, with more states on the way. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. Another misread from Shai here. And just watch Shai's head. Jay Will is wide open in the corner here. Look at Shai's head. He's head down, staring at the floor, driving into a double team, and trying to flop for a foul when he's got a shooter who literally made 5 threes in the last game standing wide open in strong side corner. Like, you're allegedly the best offensive player in the world. You got to make the simple strong side corner help read, especially when your team's having such a hard time generating quality shots. Here's a really good Shai drop rep. Starts by him getting Fox caught on the screen. Does a good job getting Fox caught on the screen with the spin move, okay? So now Fox is caught on the screen. He's fully engaged Wemby. Because he's fully engaged Wemby, that gives you an opportunity for Hartenstein to get behind. Good pass in the pocket. Easy dunk for Hartenstein. Another bucket for Shai and drop. Pull up 2 over the top. Gets Fox. Wipes him out on the screen. Gets to his spot. Easy little pull up. Another strong side corner help, though. Good shot by Shai. But, like, notice, like, this just kind of reminds me of last year where his response to this great punch from San Antonio was tunnel vision basketball. And there were reads to be had in this game that he just wasn't making. And I again, like, the reads against the double teams are different because it's like you're getting double teamed 40 feet from the basket. You have to pass the basketball. Late help on drives is a very different decision-making process because the shot is very much one of your possibilities here. And Shai does make this shot over essentially a double team from Wemby and Devin Vassell. But there are opportunities to take kick-out reads that are there, and that's why it's going to make a little bit harder of a challenge for Shai. It's a difficult decision in the decision zone here in the middle of the floor compared to I'm standing out here 40 feet from the basket. They're sending 2 defenders at me. I just throw the ball to the guy slipping into the pocket or the guy that flashes to the top or whatever it might be. It's going to put a higher level of pressure on Shai to make good decisions on his attacks. Here's an example of what I was talking about with Shai not looking overly explosive. Now, part of this is triple threat. Triple threat puts such a heavy emphasis on, like, your first step quickness and less of an emphasis on, like, your ability to deceive people with dribble combinations, which Shai does have a very quick first step, but against a guy like Steph Castle, it's not that great of an athletic advantage. So it's very important for him to be able to get into his bag, so to speak. And in this triple threat, he kind of just has to go one way or the other. Watch how little of an athletic effect he has on Steph Castle on this move. Like, he's just not getting separation. He looks tired too. Like, doesn't he look fatigued here? Like, that's an extremely low percentage shot with very little separation against great defense from Steph Castle. I'm going to show you a couple other examples. You guys will see the difference between, like, triple threat versus when he's kind of getting into his bag. So bad spacing is going to kill this first attack, but then we're going to get a good look out of the second attack by Shai making the right read. So as you can see here again, as McCain is starting to turn the corner, you have Caruso cuts right into the dunker spot as that's happening, which allows Wemby to kind of roam at the rim. So the first attack is now dead. And Jay Will, once again, look at Jay Will. Watch him walking out of his spot. If Jay Will literally just, as this cut is happening from Caruso, if Caruso cuts through and Jay Will rushes to get up into this gap, then one of those 2 guys is going to be open. Like, Caruso's going to be open. Wemby's roaming off of him. But now Harrison Barnes can effectively guard both of them because Jay Will is, with no urgency, walking up the short corner line. So that was another example of, like, how that I thought their spacing and just their urgency in getting to the right spots off ball was just off last night. But now we're going to go back to Shai, and we're going to get a pretty aggressive dig down from Harrison Barnes on the right corner. Shai makes the right decision here. Drives at him, draws the second defender, makes the read. That's a good look. Jay Will's just got to hit it. Now, credit Barnes. It's a really good closeout. Really good closeout from Barnes. But there's a bunch of different ways this could ignite the offense. Because again, Jay Will could also drive this closeout. And again, if these guys get their spacing right, if McCain either cuts into the lane and Chet relocates up and Caruso goes to the corner, one of those three guys is going to be open, right? So there's a certain amount of like, this is the read Shai has to continue to make to get the defense in rotation and make life easier for him. Here's another one of those Shai triple threat possessions where he doesn't look overly explosive. He looks fatigued. He looks a bit slow, and he turns it over. Watch. Triple threat. Like, look at that first step. How much does that look like MVP Shai? I'm going to play it in full speed again. Does that look like an explosive, fresh athlete? No, it looks like a dude who's exhausted, who's running out of energy to break down this Spurs defense. Couple of things here. One, this is where you're feeling that lack of ball handling depth. Two, this is why you have to make those easy reads every single time, because that is what allows you to save energy throughout the game. If you try to solve all your problems by beating the double team or beating the dig down or trying to score on a ridiculously tough shot diet, you're going to wear yourself out. A certain amount of like take the easy read every time is also just about managing your fatigue level. This is an exhausted superstar that has no ability to get separation against Dylan Harper, and he turns the basketball over. Here's a good rep, and here's an example of taking advantage of the easy read. Caruso being guarded by Wemby. It's a drop coverage rep, right? Caruso pops, okay? Vassell does a good job rotating, but Caruso, because Vassell closes to the passing lane, see how Vassell does a passing lane closeout? Look at Vassell's feet, right? So that gives Caruso an opportunity to drive the closeout. Caruso drives the closeout, knifes across the lane, and draws Wemby's eyes. That opens up Chet on the cut, and he draws the foul. That is very good spacing, simple read from Shai, advantage basketball. Those are those incremental drives that I'm talking about too, right? So Shai does a good job at the start of the possession getting his man caught on the screen. Good screen from Caruso, so he's created advantage. He drives at Wemby and takes extra time to drag him as far down as he can to open up space. Look at Wemby, by the way, communicating the defense, pointing Vassell to rotate. That opens up, that's the incremental driving that I'm talking about. Drive number one. Okay, here's drive number two, right? Drive number two opens up Chet. Look at on the weak side. Chet sees Harper slide up. Chet, this is effectively your third drive happening in the cut, right? So we get a even more aggressive drive from Caruso that opens up a runway for Chet to cut to the basket. That's how you stack attacks. That's how you stack drives to break down an elite defense that's not like outright double teaming 30 feet from the basket. Here's bad spacing that gets saved by good spacing. Watch Chet and Jared McCain. So we're going to go to Shai. Shai's working against Vassell. But look at on the weak side here, Chet and McCain kind of standing in the same spot. That creates an issue where you can have all these bodies on Shai, but nobody's open, right? Generally speaking, the rule of thumb, and this is why it's bad spacing, where do you go as you're the dunker? When the ball is being driven along the left lane line, the dunker spot is opposite, always opposite. So as Shai is driving down the left lane line, Chet needs to be here. If he crosses over and attacks down the right lane line, then Chet should be here, right? And then if anybody drives baseline, either direction, Chet should be right here in the middle of the lane. That's your like three spots where you want to be. But we have Kenrich Williams, who's in kind of janking things up in the middle of the lane. Chet Holmgren's janking things up in the middle of the lane. This is poor spacing. I would argue in this particular case, if I'm Kenrich Williams and I get a switch, I need to be clearing to the 3-point line because I already have the dunker spot occupied. I'm not a short roll scorer, so I don't need to be rolling into that space. So you got the screen, switch, good job, clear out, go to this wing. Kaysen Wallace stays in the corner. Chet Holmgren stays there. That way, when Shai drives and draws in Fox, Jared McCain is the right read. Shai probably should still throw this pass to McCain, but this is poor spacing. Now watch Cason Wallace save the whole thing because he runs. He runs to an open spot, catches Champagny with his head turned. See? Runs to an open spot and generates a closeout that he beats with a right-handed drive and a scoop shot over the top of Victor Wembanyama. So again, you saw bad spacing get saved by one guy doing his job, relocating with real pace off the ball. Now, here's the difference in Shai's ability to get separation off the dribble when he's attacking with a live dribble versus in that triple threat. Why? Because he can get in this lean down position and he can get into his bag. Watch how he breaks down with that little in and out dribble. And Harper's a little bit more on his heels. There's initial separation. So he's not trying to beat him with first step quickness purely out of a triple threat. He's able to get downhill, get some good separation, bump Harper off, gets tons of space, and hits the shot over Wemby. Ridiculous contest from Wemby, but better shot from Shai. This I thought was a really good rep from Shai too. Attacking against Castle, drives at Wemby, strong side corner help. This is, again, these were the reads he was missing earlier in the game. Gets downhill, good rep. Cason's just got to knock this shot down. Now, Wemby's ridiculous, so he turns it into a contest anyway, but that's a good look. That's a good rep. The one thing I would emphasize here is how many like really good shots. Now, we're at the end of the first half. How many really good shots here did the Thunder get? Not many. And so that's what concerns me a little bit moving forward in the series is like, yes, Shai can do better. Shai can make those reads. Shai can start those advantage sequences. The spacing can be better. They can have more of those possessions where there's multiple attacks and they get better shots. But this is going to have to be a series where the Thunder drag the Spurs into the mud on one end of the court and they get more wins against this particular defensive look. Here's another example of Chet initiating offense, drawing a double team and setting up a Cason Wallace catch and shoot three. So we have a ball screen that gets Chet, the screen here from Hartenstein gets Chet a little bit of separation from Vassell. He starts to attack him, back to the basket, draws in Fox. That creates the open catch and shoot three for Cason Wallace, who knocks it down. Good rotation there from Fox getting back out, but that's a good look. I just want to see the Thunder do more of that. Just initiate through Chet out of the post. Look at how tough this shot is for Shai over Wemby. Coming out of the Chicago action in the corner, kind of actually a interesting version where it's more like a ball screen for Cason Wallace into a dribble handoff that flows into a ball screen. It's kind of like pistol, essentially. Turns the corner here, though. Gets on Wemby. Look at how tough this shot is. Look at the contest from Wemby. But I would argue look at how like Shai's feet are good though. Like this is one of those ones, kind of like the Champagny one from earlier, where it's like Shai probably needs to make this shot. This was a look that I thought was fascinating to explore for OKC in Game 5. Hartenstein as the passer at the top of the key. We get a screen for Shai to curl. Look at Wemby. Wemby's glued up to Hartenstein. That allows Shai to turn the corner, and now Wemby's out of the picture, and he's able to easily get to the rim for a layup. That's something I'd explore more. Now, what bothers me is like, okay, so that just worked, right? You just got a layup for Shai by doing that. This is the very next possession. Instead of going back to the action that just worked, we're going back into our ball screen attack. We're loading up the strong side. This was one of the biggest differences. Look at where the passing reads for Shai are. In this case, he's got Hartenstein underneath the basket, but if he throws it there, Wemby can recover. It's this weak side skip that's really the only guy that's being left open because they're loading up on the strong side. But it just kind of bothered me that they just got a layup for Shai out of running off-ball action and then went away from it. We're going to go back to the off-ball action here finally, several possessions after it worked. But credit to Devin Vassell for some ball denial here. So Hartenstein's got the ball. We're getting ready to set the pick. Look at Vassell denying. I'm going to run this in slow motion. Watch Vassell denying. Kind of like see how he gets over the screen from Cason? Causes the play to kind of die. The other thing it causes this dynamic where Hartenstein has to kill time. Because Hartenstein has to kill time, he's dribbling now instead of just holding. Look at Steph Castle. He's like, oh, this is my chance. Zooms in there. Pokes the ball away. We're going out the other direction. But I do want to see them explore that off-ball action more. 3 more. This I thought was just a bad Shai rep against Wemby here. Like he just piles right into his chest and turns the basketball over. Look at the read too. Strong side corner help again. Aaron Wiggins in the left corner there. Not even looking, like his head is down. He's looking this way. Doesn't even realize that the help is coming from the other direction. One of the things that really stood out to me in the film was just how often Wemby in particular was still roaming off of his man. And so especially in the looks when Hartenstein is off the floor, I think the Thunder should weaponize that as the way to make their first attack. So look at Wemby roaming off of Chet. He's ignoring him and leaves Chet open. Gets a wide open three. But whoever it is that Wemby's guarding when Hartenstein's off the floor, I just want to see the Thunder do a better job of basically using that guy as the guy to get that first closeout attack and try to get the defense reacting to some more of those drives. And again, getting yourself in a situation where you can stack multiple attacks and get cleaner looks. But as you guys can see from the film, there's not a whole lot of easy shots in there. There's definitely like Shai can definitely do a way better job. He can make more of those easy dig down reads. He can hit more of his like shots where he does manage to get separation. There are certain looks that they can go to, like those Hartenstein kind of Gortat screens in the lane, like we talked about. The off-ball action with Hartenstein is the passing fulcrum, attacking through the guy that Wemby's guarding first to try to get the defense in rotation more. There's definitely things that they can do better, but you guys can clearly tell this is not going to be like a OKC 120 offensive rating type of series, at least in any sort of large sample. Maybe they go get a blowout in a game 5 or a game 7, but like this is going to be in the mud for the most part. And it comes down to OKC has to do more damage to the San Antonio offense than San Antonio does to the OKC offense. Starts with Shai. Shai's got to be way better. He's got to be the best offensive player in the world. And then the OKC defense has to do a better job of dislodging that Spurs offense to trigger more of those transition sequences and to keep the game low scoring enough so that the margin for error is nice and big for that OKC offense on the other end of the floor. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We'll be back live on YouTube tonight after the final buzzer of the Eastern Conference Finals Game 4. I'll see you guys then.